African Renewable Energy Fund. It's an investment fund focused specifically on sub-Saharan Africa. It closed on Thursday with about $100 million of committed capital. That cash will be used to support small and medium-sized independent power producers. Now, it will be headquartered in Nairobi, and it aims to raise another $100 million or so within the next 12 months. That cash will be invested in grid-connected, development stage renewable energy projects, and those include small hydro, wind power plants, geothermal power plants, solar, biomass and waste gas powered ones. Promoted by the African Biofuel and Renewable Energy Company along with the African Development Bank, Arif, or Arif if you will be managed by Berkely Energy. The Mauritius-based fund will target power projects with an installed capacity of anywhere between 5 and 15 megawatts, and it will commit anywhere between $10 and $30 million per project. Let's get you some first-hand analysis of what's going on with the AREF fund. Eddy Njoroge is a former managing director of the Kenya electricity generating company, KenGen, Kenya's biggest utility. He's also part of the investment committee at Berkely Energy Africa, the fund manager that's running AREF. He joins us now live in studio. Mr. Njoroge, always a pleasure to have you here. Tell me, why did Arif decide to focus exclusively on small-scale renewable energy projects?
It's partly because we felt that the utility companies like KenGen and all the other national utility companies can handle the big projects. But for the private sector to participate in the development of power in Africa, we need to go for the smaller projects. There's nobody who is in the private sector who is going to put up 280 megawatt projects. And therefore, we need to bring them down to about 5 megawatts to about 15 megawatts, which then we are encouraging the private sector to participate in the power development.
Indeed. We've been looking, however, at some of the figures from the Kenyan power subsector, and based on your experience there, there's roughly 2,000 or so megawatts of completely unexploited small hydro generation capacity. Why is that capacity unexploited so far?
Again, for the reason that I've just stated, that KenGen was not in a position to do those small hydros. They wanted to do big projects because the demand was growing at a rate that we needed to have KenGen do bigger projects. And therefore, the small ones can only be done by the private sector. And we did not have private sector participation in the small hydros. So now with this sort of fund, we are hoping that we can be able to encourage a lot more private sector players. And we are also hoping that even the counties themselves will be able to participate and be able to develop some of those hydros through the county development funds or whatever instruments that the counties will come up with for developing their own natural resources of power.
Indeed. You're, of course, on the Berkely Africa Investment Committee. Are there specific countries that you plan to invest in the medium term?
It's really sub-Saharan Africa, except South Africa, because we believe that South Africa has got means to be able to do their own projects. But the rest of the African continent, sub-Saharan Africa, we will invest across West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, and a bit of South Africa, except South Africa. So across the whole of Africa. Indeed.
Power sector projects, however, do tend to have a fairly long lead time. So how do you then balance that against the need to make a return on your investment and exit within, say, 5, 6, 7 years?
Part of the reason why we have gathered together some very experienced people in the sector is because this is precisely why projects have been taking too long, because they do not have experienced people. But some of us who are involved now with Berkely Energy and Arif have been involved in projects, and therefore we can not just give the financing, but we can also be able to give guidance to the projects to ensure that the projects are completed on time and that they do not take the long periods that was taking on so that projects can be implemented much faster.
Indeed, we'll have to leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for that. That's Eddy Njoroge, former KenGen Chief Executive, and of course, at the moment, a member of the Investment Committee of Berkely Africa.